we are all seeing a lot of RFEs, a lot of rejections, 221Gs. Today we are hearing of scenarios where people are suddenly getting H1B revocation notices and are being asked to appear in court.
I'm Nicole Gunara. I'm the principal immigration attorney here at Manifest Law.
I am in the 60-day grace period and I get a notice from USCIS that my H1B visa is getting revoked. What should I immediately do in that situation?
The best thing that anybody can do is be proactive rather than reactive. Individuals who don't really have anything left, they were only relying on this last lottery. Now is the time to really be considering alternative pathways. Do not wait until the very last minute to go, oh no, what about the other options?
The topic that we are going to touch for today is going to be all about the H1B 2025. If an RFE leads to a denial, are there immediate post-denial options for applicants that you want to recommend? Hi everyone, this is Priya from It's Okay Yaar and welcome back to our channel. And if you're new today, It's Okay Yaar is a content platform for South Asian immigrants and we aim to educate, entertain and empower them. Today we have with us Nicole, who's a lawyer at the Manifest law firm. While I was speaking to her, I was super impressed in the way she was able to articulate some of the questions that we had. So I thought it would be really great to kind of have her today on It's Okay Yaar and answer some of the major themes that's been happening in the ecosystem. The topic that we are going to touch for today is going to be all about the H1B 2025. What's the current status right now? So basically, we are all seeing a lot of RFEs, a lot of rejections, 221Gs. So we are going to spend some time understanding from Nicole some of the best practices, how to navigate it, and if you're in a situation, what else you can do. Also, I will have a fantastic surprise for you all with the Manifest law firm, a great discount code that you can find in the description box. All the details will be there. With that, I'm going to pause. Welcome, Nicole. And if you want to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Thank you so much for having me, Priya, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. So just to reintroduce myself to everyone here, yes, I'm Nicole Gunara. I'm the principal immigration attorney here at Manifest Law. What makes Manifest Law very different from others is that we're a very tech-forward, tech-oriented firm. We're very data-driven, research-driven. We try to make sure that we are very much on top of the trends and the latest and greatest in order to best support you, your immigration journeys, and your applications, right? Personally, I have a lot of extensive experience handling a lot of corporate immigration cases, extraordinary ability visa cases as well. But anything and everything that a lot of people encounter, I really do my best to really support you and be able to provide you the best legal advice as possible. That being said, again, thank you for the introduction. Happy to be here to start talking about the topics for today, like the H1B 2025 stuff. There's a lot of news coming out today, correct, Priya?
Yes, I think today we are on July 18, 2025 when we are shooting this video. So yes, there is a bunch that is happening. So Nicole, let's get straight into the topic. Today we are hearing of scenarios where people are suddenly getting H1B revocation notices and are being asked to appear in court. Most of it seems to be happening because they've moved to a new company, and while the transfer is in progress, the previous company has either revoked the visa or the USCIS status hasn't been updated. Can you please throw some light on what this whole situation looks like and how someone should navigate it?
Right. So taking one step back, it is very normal for companies to revoke an H1B once you've left the organization. That's just normal practice, right? We're supposed to inform USCIS as well as the Department of Labor when it comes to revoking the LCAs, partially because of wage-related questions and items, right? That being said, what's been happening is I think it's a database issue in my point of view. The government sees that, oh, it feels like you're out of status despite the fact that you filed maybe a new application, or you haven't filed a new application yet because you're in the middle of your grace period. So to answer your question on what do you think people need to do, what do they need to prepare for if they get such a notice, it's talking to Immigration Counsel to provide the right information to the government to say, hey, I'm still in the middle of my grace period. I'm allowed to be here for this 60-day period. On top of that, especially if you have a pending change of employer application or a pending change of status application to another, let's say, employer or another visa status, right? That is something that you want to start collecting documentation to show that you did it timely, right? So that you can present it to whoever the authorities are for you to present it. But you're absolutely correct, Priya, that we have been seeing these notices come out, but they're not as frequent as you think. I think so far we've maybe only seen one or two incidences get played out on the internet. I don't think it's the most common scenario.
Interesting. So I'm going to ask a little bit of a more pointed question because we've been receiving a few DMs around that. So basically, if I am someone who is changing an employer lawyer today who's on an H1B visa. In the past, I was comfortable applying for that change and then working on a receipt. Is that something that is still recommended, or would you advise that someone goes for a premium processing right away?
Well, the reality is that for the sense of comfort and for peace of mind, premium processing will always be beneficial, especially if you have a really solid and very straightforward case, because why not, right? Yes, it is an additional cost, but that peace of mind and that green piece of paper, that approval notice, is very powerful. But at the end of the day, the laws have not changed, right? Portability still applies. You're able to still start working at your new role the moment that the application is filed, and so long as the LCA is valid at that moment. So I really think that in many instances, to me, this comes across more as a government error, right? Obviously, it depends on each person's case. I don't know every single person's detail when they're seeing these like revocation notices. But again, if you timely filed your change of employer, you timely filed your change of status and the documentation in time within that 60-day grace period, and you can prove that it was within that 60-day grace period, then I think we should be okay.
So, say I am in the 60-day grace period and I get a notice from USCIS that my H1B visa is getting revoked. What should I immediately do in that situation?
I think it's start to collect documentation to show when your last day was at that previous organization, right? Getting your last pay stub, when was the end date of that pay period, because that triggers your 60-day grace period. Or really, when was the last day you actually performed work for the organization, right? So when you start collecting that evidence so that you can show to the government that you've successfully maintained that status up to that point, and again, you're either A, within the 60-day grace, or B, you've already filed that application within the 60-day grace period, that should be enough for you to be able to prove otherwise, and try to see what you can do with that notice to appear, right? Again, I really think that this is not necessarily the most common scenario. I do think that this is going to be some limited incidences at the time, but the best thing that anybody can do is be proactive rather than reactive, right? So the moment that you're terminated or the moment that you leave the company, please keep good records of your pay stubs. Please keep good records of your last day at the office so that you can appropriately show when your 60-day grace period began.
Okay, and just for everyone's peace of mind, just receiving a notice of revocation from USCIS doesn't mean that it's gotten revoked. Does that still mean that if I have the right documentation and can show that, everything, I followed the process, I can still be okay? Is that how it works?
Well, I want to make it clear, right? A notice of revocation is just a notice to you that your previous H1B was revoked, right? That's not an issue, right? What people are afraid of right now are the NTAs, a notice to appear. A notice to appear in court primarily because you are somehow out of status, and you're being argued that you're not lawfully in the United States, right? So the notice to revoke is something that a lot of people normally can get because you've been told, like, hey, it's not like you've been told, but the government's been told that your H1B is no longer there. Why? Because you're no longer working for that company, right?
Yeah, so what happens if I get a notice to appear? Is that a very serious situation, or if I have the right documentation and I followed the process, I can still, my lawyer can basically help make a case? Is that how it works?
I would say it's in between. A notice to appear is still a serious document that should be responded to, right? There should be a mechanism for you to be able to say something to counter the point, but you really do need to take action. I always recommend that if any single person gets an NTA, they really should be going to immigration counsel, whether it's myself or any other professional. Just make sure that you're going to counsel immediately, because it is a serious document that needs to be responded to. Do not ignore it, because even if you're in compliance, you still should be able to say something, and you need to try to respond to it.
Got it. Thank you so much for clarifying that. We'll move on to the next question. So today it was announced that there will not be a second H1B lottery. So want to talk to you a little bit about the recent trends in the 2025 lottery season. What is the H1B approval rates that you've been seeing, and are the decisions delayed? Like, what is the process? Can you talk to us a little bit?
So I will tell you, I haven't seen that much of a change when it comes to approval rates. However, the instances of RFEs coming, I feel like, are potentially going to increase. And the reason why I say potentially is because not everybody files with premium processing. Actually, a lot of people file with regular processing. And for people who filed with regular processing, many haven't gotten any RFEs just yet or any final decisions. But my anticipation stems from history, right? Under Trump 1.0 in the previous administration, we did see a an uptick of H1B RFEs, especially when it comes to what is known as specialty occupation RFEs, proving that the role genuinely requires a bachelor's degree to fulfill and you can fulfill it with your credentials, right? Or alternatively, we can see an uptick, or we can perceive an uptick on something known as wage rate RFEs. So wage rate RFEs are related to when a company doesn't seem to be paying you enough for what this role is, or the role requires higher qualifications than the wage rate likes to show, right? So that being said, I can perceive that there would be an uptick. Personally, in our practice, we have not seen a general uptick on the RFE, but history is more likely to repeat itself. So people really should be prepared for the potential reality that they would need to respond to these requests for evidence.
Got it. And finally, for example, if an RFE leads to a denial, are there immediate post-denial options for applicants that you want to recommend?
I think it does depend on your status, right? Especially for people who are in student statuses, that's where you should kind of think to yourself, hey, would it be a good idea for me to go back to school, maybe pursue a master's degree? For individuals who are in their first year of OPT and they still have STEM OPT, that's when you start kind of considering to yourself, hey, let me start putting together the paperwork for a STEM OPT extension. Although I will tell every single person who is on first year OPT, who is approaching STEM OPT, to still apply anyways, because it doesn't hurt, right? But for individuals who don't really have anything left, right, and they were only relying on this last lottery, now is the time to really be considering alternative pathways. Is it that you qualify maybe for an O1 visa, like an extraordinary ability visa? Or is it alternatively that you can approach like a J1 specialist visa? So a J1 is usually known for an internship or a training visa, but there are some organizations that can hire you as a specialist, for example.
Got it. No, that is super helpful. Before we wrap it up, any parting thoughts or any questions or anything that you want to highlight for anyone who has actively applied for the H1B, waiting for their results, or is going through an RFE?
Absolutely. If anything, what I'm trying to kind of give a tip to for individuals is that when I'm looking at this year's trends, right? To be honest with you, I'm pleasantly surprised that we reached the cap, right? We've had in the last 5 years only one time that we didn't do a second round. And I was thinking that, oh, because we've had a higher rate of individuals being selected, maybe that would mean that we're going to have a higher rate of next set of selections on the second round, right? But instead, what this has shown is that there's a higher intent. Right? So before, when there were multiple employers submitting multiple applications for people, right, there was more of a likelihood of slots going back into the system for other people to be selected. But now I do think that the general trend moving forward is that we're only going to have one round. So what does that mean? For individuals who are currently on OPT, for individuals who are trying to wait into this cycle of getting an H1B, you really need to start considering alternative pathways earlier. Do not wait until your third year of STEM OPT. Do not wait until the very last minute to go, oh no, what about the other options, right? Because one of the biggest options that people should be approaching and really considering is the O1 visa. The O1 Extraordinary Ability Visa does not have a lottery. It does not have that cap and that limit, right? So the earlier that you start preparing for it by kind of investing your time in the right places, maybe you're a researcher, right? And as a researcher, you get peer review opportunities, but you've been ignoring it because you're like, hey, I still have a couple more years on my OPT left. I can just do and wait with the lottery. That doesn't really make sense. You really should start preparing early, so if you have those opportunities, take those opportunities.
Thank you so much. I think that was super insightful. And anyone who's hearing and thinking that, I don't qualify for O1, this is not for me, etc., etc., like, you'll be shocked how many of you can actually be eligible. So my recommendation would be at least take the free assessment that is available to understand where you are and start building your profile accordingly. A lot of the resources will be shared in the description box, and stay with us because I'm going to be covering a bunch of other content with Nicole, which is going to be around EB1A scrutiny, what's happening, birthright citizenship, etc., etc. But we are very, very glad to have Manifest Law on board as our partner. Again, as you all know, We partnered with a very handful of attorneys only, the ones that either our friends have gotten approval through or people we know, and only if someone is highly recommended and I've spent some time with the founder and the person I'm talking to, that's when we partner. So we truly trust that this is going to be great. So please take advantage. If there are certain topics that you want us to make sure that we educate you on, please leave that in the description box. With that, if things aren't going your way, remember it's okay, because they will eventually turn around. With that, this is Priya and Nicole signing off. Have a wonderful day.